In a world of nothing, of barren hills and cracked earth and once proud oceans drained to sand, there will still be a monument to our existence. Bleached by the sun perhaps, and blunted by time, but everlasting. For this man represents all that is eternal in the human spirit, the courage to go on when others fail or turn away, the strength to recognize the value of freedom and to accept the cost, no matter how great. Through the curtain of the aurora, a comet blazes to herald his arrival, and his victory shall be transcribed into every language known to history. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the great Jason Howes.
Holy crap. That was amazing. We're going to have you at one of our events. At Mekanism, we build iconic brands with soul and science. The soul is culturally relevant brand building, and the science is the always-on marketing activities that drive the bottom line. Learn more at Mekanism.com. Legend has it that on July 4th, 1916, 4 immigrants at the original Nathan's hot dog stand in Coney Island had a debate about who was the most patriotic. Their solution? Well, a contest to see who could eat the most hot dogs. And since 1972, this tradition has grown into the Nathan's famous international hot dog eating contest in Coney Island, hosted by the over-the-top showman, George Shea. Beyond being the beloved MC and hype man, George is a seasoned marketing professional with 3 decades of experience. Together with his brother Richard, he has elevated this contest into a major brand promotion recognized around the world. And beyond Nathan's, George and company run MLE, Major League Eating, and also Shea Communications doing work in the commercial real estate industry. In today's episode, you'll learn what it takes to create and promote a niche sport like competitive eating. And you'll learn why controversy is so effective for generating earned media. Let's get into it and learn about the soul and science of Major League Eating. George, I've been wanting to talk to you for a while. I've been a big fan since I went to my first Nathan's hot dog competition in 2021, which I then went 3 years in a row. It's been amazing. You are such a good ringleader. It is hard to imagine what you couldn't do. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the George Shea origin story. First of all, how you ended up doing what you're doing. You founded with your brother the International Federation of Competitive Eating in 1997. You guys run Shea Communications. What were you doing prior to that, and how did you get into this whole world?
When you say origin stories, my mind popped all the way back to when I was young. That's not what we're talking about here. But, the interesting thing was when I was young, what was relevant is I loved to read, and I loved to read sci-fi and all these sort of heroic stories that rely on basic tropes that you see in every movie and everything like that. But the origin of everything that's happening now really comes from my first job, where I started working in 1988 with these 2 crazy press agents, truly interesting guys. Max Rosie was an old-time press agent, literally put an elephant on water skis to promote Palisades Amusement Park in New Jersey. And Morty Matz, who just turned 100. He is 100 years old.
Amazing.
And he was a great stunt man and did these just amazing stunts. I could tell you stories about him. But we also represented, I really worked for Morty. We represented all variety. We represented a lot of elected officials, unions, real estate, restaurants, all that kind of stuff. We did a ton of crisis management. A lot of the elected officials that we worked with were indicted for one reason or another. So we have this very, very crazy world. One of the things that Max and Morty had done was the Nathan's contest that they'd run since 1972. And it was really Max, who did that, and he would host it, to the extent that saying go was hosting. And it was very, very small. I took over that event in 91 when Max passed away. and I grew it from there. But I would say that the origin of what we do really comes from that sense of press agentry, stunts, humor, creativity, and a world that really doesn't exist. That exists perhaps in social media now, but not in earned media. And it's much harder than it was 30 years ago to. So we execute our messaging and our story through earned media and social media now, but really historically through earned media. It's very difficult. You don't control it, right? So we're not like WWE that has a weekly television shows and hours on which they control the narrative and they can create a narrative. We create our narrative through reporters. So there's really much more challenging, but in a way much more rewarding. And we've been very successful at that.
The Max and Morty show, was that really political PR?
It was PR for labor unions, politics, everything, restaurant, consumer, stunts, crisis management. It was sort of checkbook PR. If the client had a checkbook, we were there.
Kind of going back to your love of sci-fi and storytelling, when you met up with these guys and you started doing this work, you're really telling stories to try to get earned media or to change. If someone's in trouble, you're trying to change the narrative.
And that is the only way to work in the earned media business, and for that matter, social media or any media. Now I focus almost entirely on commercial real estate in PR, right? And we do social media and earned media. You announce news and you put people in for awards and lists and stuff. But what you do to get press on an ongoing basis and position your clients as experts, you identify trend stories and you tell those stories to media, right? And the truth of the matter is that there may be 5 to 10, maybe 20 trend stories per year, right? In say in New York real estate, but you basically can do trend story after trend story after trend story because every reporter, and there are lots who cover that sector, need trend stories every week. So you're just playing with it and you're just telling lots and lots of stories. One thing that just popped into my mind, you were talking about storytelling. I was recently working with a group that has a major, they're trying to shift public opinion statewide in a state on a real estate issue. And I was explaining to them, you can't rebut issues. It's very hard to rebut something. All you're doing is strengthening the issue that you're rebutting. What you need to do is come up with a new narrative and replace the old narrative with the new narrative. So, it's a very interesting thing. You can't just go, that's not true. In fact, there's a nuance in XYZ because no one's listening.
No one cares.
No one cares. You come up with something totally different and say that has nothing to do with anything. The real reason is this. Then people will catch on to that. But there's a lot of these sort of nuances in how you can move the needle on people's opinions that is not necessarily instinctive, because every single one of my clients instinctively wants to rebut everything tit for tat when no one's listening, and it won't matter if they did.
Can you give me an example in your business where there was this narrative happening and then you came up with a new narrative?
So this example, which I won't use the entity, but years ago I was representing a client and they had a very difficult situation where one of the partners was going to be indicted. And that would reflect very, very poorly on the company, right? And so the issue here was this is not really changing the story so much as changing the rules. There was this, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We can't do anything. And I just said, just get rid of the guy. Just buy him out and get rid of him. And by the time this happens, he will not be part of this entity. We will publicize the fact that he's gone. And then when that happens, he was gone already. Now, that is a very obvious approach, right? Because he was going to be indicted. He was not going to be part of that company long term. But it wasn't obvious. It just didn't pop to mind.
And did that work?
It worked very well.
So basically, before the stank of this guy gets on the company,
He was gone.
then you're like, well, he's not here.
He
So
called and said, "What about this?" He goes, he's not part of the company anymore. He's left it.
Yeah.
It's already done."
That's really interesting. What do you think, George, that you're really good at that very few people are?
And I am a concept salesperson. That's what I am. I am continually, day after day, selling concepts to media, or to, and you could extrapolate to consumers and business people, business, etc. But so my ability to manage concepts quickly, efficiently, boil it down, package it, and deliver it to media or whomever, that is really a skill that's been extremely helpful to me. And the other thing is, on a super mundane level, I always wanted to be a writer. I was an English major in college. I wanted to be able to write well. Horrible high school education, really started learning in college, but stayed at it afterwards and through this job. I'm a really very capable writer, right? I'm not flowery language, not like this kind of stuff, although you could get into the purple language of competitive eating, but like on business writing, managing concepts, that's a difficult thing to do, and very few people can do it. And if you can do it, you're a big leg up. If you think of it, movie trailers, that is very similar to the emotion I'm trying to get on the introductions that I do. And it's kind of like movie trailer poetry, right? At one level, and that's really the element of what I'm trying to do on stage is he's joking, he's not joking, right? Like, this is absurd, and yet I'm kind of getting goosebumps, or that walking that line to me is really, really interesting, because if you think of any of the Joey Chestnut intros, they're just way over the top, and yet people all the time tell me I just love that.
Gets everyone jacked.
Yeah.
Can you just shit those out, or do you write them down, memorize them, or do they just come naturally at this point?
I could introduce a lot of people off the top of my head right now with intros, but that's because I thought about them, I wrote them down, I memorized them, and I delivered them.
But you're introducing 20 people, and you don't have all those memorized.
I do.
Right?
I do.
You do. Okay.
And it's an exercise that creates a lot of anxiety on my part. But the interesting thing about the introductions, if you're doing 15, you can't do 15 epic intros. You can't do 15 comedic intros. You can't do 15 fantastical kind of intros. There has to be a balance. There has to be quick ones, have to be really straight ones. There's a real rhythm that I learned over the years doing this. You lose people if you don't do it right. And that's really, there's a science to that on what and how you deliver.
And so you're going to a event this weekend where you're showing up in the hat. Will you rip some intros for the company? And do you have those written down, or?
No, I just know so many, and it's embarrassing. This is embarrassing, right? This is my shame. I do Cameo because I have a lot of,
Oh my God, that's amazing.
There's a small community of people who really
love
the intros. And so they asked, and Cameo, so we're getting a lot of, so I do them. But as a result of doing them, and I'm always embarrassed when I do them, but when I do them, you have to do a bunch of different ones. And so I have a lot that are just there. And sometimes I'll go do a corporate event, I'll introduce a C-suite, and then the CEO is the Joey, and you find someone who's fun, who you can tease, right? But on this weekend, I'll just have 3, 4, 5, 6 intros ready to rock and roll, and intro someone or take a photo. I mean, it's really this is not hard work.
I love that you're on Cameo. That's fantastic.
It is what it is. I can't lie.
So you'll just record them in your office, put the hat on, and let them rip?
So I did a big painting that's this Coney Island painting with Badlands Booker in it in my house, and it's against a wall. And I put the thing there, and I just go bang, in a world of nothing, and then you end up, I give you the great Craig Smith, happy 46th birthday from your wife. You know what I mean? It's all.
That's so awesome. All right. So you founded International Federation of Competitive Eating in 1997. how did you guys have the idea to do this? Obviously, you were talking about Max and Morty, and they already had the Nathan's partnership, or they were doing something. Did you guys just take it over and it built from there, or how did that happen?
What happened, I'll do a quick recap of that, and then I'll tell you how we did IFOCE. So Max died in 91. I took over the contest, and then I started getting into it and started doing intros because it was just fun. There was no one there. There's 20 people. There were 6 competitors, 2 cameras, 20 people. It was not like it is now. And I started doing stunts. So we got the mustard belt back, right? A cynic would say that my buddy Kevin Pierce made the first belt out of a weight belt and jewels from Pearl Paint downtown. And then we said, oh, the belt is back. The belt came back from Japan. We beat someone, and now the belt has been lost for 20 years. It's back in America, right? Big post story, like big full page post story on that. And then when the Japanese, it went national and global, the Japanese literally heard that they had lost the belt, and they sent 3 eaters to get the belt back.
Wait, you're kidding me.
No, and they won and took
That is
the belt
genius.
back to Japan. Like, so the next year the belt's in Japan, and you're kind of going, wow, like craziness. So we just did a ton of that. That's how I started taking over and built it up in the 90s. This group did a documentary, this great guy, Marshall Dostal, and Mark Littman did this really funny documentary. It was fun. And then in 97, I started my own firm. Rich came and joined me. And then we were sort of messing around with everything. It was growing. And just one day I said, it'd be really funny to do a seal and a website for the International Federation of Competitive Eating, the most absurd and awkward name I could come up with, right? Just outrageously. And we created a seal, and the seal had 2 griffins, and it had a Latin inscription, in voro veritas, which means in gorging there is truth. And just like for fun, no one asked us to do it. But then we started calling media because we're pitching this, that, or that event. And, we said, I'm calling from the International Federation of Competitive Eating, and we have an event. They go, whoa, there's an International Federation of Competitive Eating? We said, yes, absolutely, we're global. And they go, we're doing a story. So we always did things that we thought were funny, but because they connected with the journalists, we got a massive free ride.
Now the logo is a hand holding up a fork.
It's Major League Eating. Dave wisely said that we need to, my partner Dave Baird said, we need to adjust this. It's very funny, but the vibe of this whole promotion has changed from being one that was fundamentally comedic to being more of an X Games kind of sport. And we need to change that. And he was entirely right. So Major League Eating is what we market under now.
Obviously, the biggest event is Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest. What are some other big events as well?
Like, I'm getting ready. My next event will be, I always do it, Buffalo Chicken Wings in New York on Labor Day. There's a huge festival, the United States Wing Fest. And great people, Drew Surza up there. We've done it for 25 years, 22 years, 20 years, I don't know, but a long time. Really big one. We also do poutine in Toronto, which is a big one. We just did a big one for Wendy's, a big chicken wing eating contest, chicken nugget eating contest for Wendy's. But, there are a lot. We do a wonderful pistachio eating championship where you actually have to crack the pistachios. But we do a lot throughout the year. And we've done in China, Thailand, the UK.
Do you feel like MLE is where you want it to be? Do you have other aspirations for it?
There are certain elements of competitive eating that are more difficult than, say, skateboarding, right? So competitive eating, some people are going to find it unpalatable, right? And there is a gender gap in our fan base where fewer women are engaged than men. So, it's an interesting product. And food brands are largely our sponsors. So, it's, in some ways, with its unique characteristics, it's remarkable that it has been as powerful as it has been. But given that, I think we have not exploited it as much as we could have. For instance, when we started, we would pay video, editors and, crews to come in. It might be $3,000 or $4,000, right? And we do this quick video. Now, of course, you could do it in a snap for zero, which is what everybody does on social media. But we couldn't really do that when we started in the early 2000s. And then we kind of moved, the three partners kind of moved past it a little. And I'm not going to do a ton of George Shea videos because although I've embarrassed myself with cameos, I said, because I would just feel awkward. But I would not have felt awkward in late 90s. I would have messed around like that with crazy. So we have missed some of the social media opportunity is what I'm trying to say. And I think really there's a huge opportunity on that, which many of our eaters have taken advantage of, that is more difficult as the organization for us to do.
How do you manage to attract sponsors?
So we reach out to sponsors on a regular basis, and frequently with the pitch that, we could do something for you, or you could come in as a secondary sponsor on the 4th of July, which many folks have done. So Pepsid, Pepto-Bismol.
Oh, that's a great brand for you guys.
Yeah. Old Navy, Heinz. We've had lots and lots of secondary sponsors, great partners. But you know what happens? We get so much media, earned media, that people just say, we should be doing that. That's just a layup. Let's just do this. And that's how it happens. Someone says, we're doing a food thing. How do we get buzz? And then they call us and we do it. So, and then when they do it, they very, very frequently come back year after year because it's fun and it's engaging and it's very lighthearted.
And there's a lot of content from it.
Yes.
Which is great for brands. I know this year there was, some controversy with Joey, and I know Patrick won it at, I think he had 58. And then there was some controversy with Miki Sudo's husband. Is that controversy helpful for you?
Well, I would like to hold up the front page of the New York.
Oh, there you go. So the answer is yes.
Controversy is critical. And I would not have chosen not to have Joey Chestnut there, and no one on our team would have. We tried very hard to get him there. What happened was all Joey. Those were his choices, and the consequences got messed up because of his choices. They weren't us. We tried every single thing we could to get him there. But with that said, I embrace controversy, and we fuel the fire. Always fuel the fire. This is a core element that anyone who does earned media knows. You need to have controversy. It's really what sells. And, negative sells better than positive. No one really cares that it's negative. It's just the buzz. And, this dates all the way back to Morty Max, who's 100, as I said. I was with him in 92, and someone cheated at the contest. And I go, the guy cheated. And he goes, there's a cop right there. Get the cop to arrest him. It'd be great for the media.
No way.
I was going, are you joking? That would besmirch the contest. It would ruin it. He goes, are you out of your mind? It's a hot dog contest. Get him arrested. We'll get big press on that. And that's literally the way he viewed it. It wasn't like, oh my God, he's going to be arrested and it was on our watch. It has nothing to do with that. Who cares? So that when there was this cheating controversy this year, front page of the New York Post, 2 days, we got lots and lots of other inquiries on this. We did not really push that. Then the Post wrote an editorial on the issue. To me, that was just glorious. Now, we work very hard to have a fair event. This was an unfortunate incident where there was video of it. You can't really see whether or not there was cheating, but there was the appearance of cheating. So that is very serious, and we don't want our brand, because we take it so seriously, we don't want anybody to think that we're not watching and we don't have rules and judges, which we do. But once that's happening, rock on.
Are you amazed at how Trump applies some of the rules that we've learned on this podcast to so much success, where he thinks about a simple image or a very quick handle, or he demeans his, and I know you don't do that. You're not, name calling, you're building people up. Do you see those skills in what Trump does?
Without getting political, and I have very strong opinions on this whole thing, but Trump, one way or another, is a true master at this. There's so many things that he has learned over time, and he understands that noise and focus is more important than content. And it's a really powerful comment on our culture, and I think humanity. But people don't care as much about what's actually being said as getting riled up or getting engaged or seeing someone on TV, right? Like, it's really amazing. But, and beyond that, Trump's comfort level is really important. If you are comfortable, everybody else is comfortable. If you are uncomfortable, people know it right away and they are uncomfortable and they won't enjoy it. Trump gets on stage and he's doing the Trump dance. I mean, it's absurd. It's like he doesn't care. It's fine. So everybody thinks it's fine. His comfort level saying what he says, as just outrageous and abhorrent as it often is, his comfort level immunizes him from an enormous amount of criticism. And even when he gets the criticism, it just falls off because it goes like this. So his ability to manage media is astounding. And one other thing I would say about that is there was a documentary, a 30 for 30, on the contest and Kobayashi and Joey and me. And they kind of made me out to be the bad guy, and I kind of played the bad guy a little. So it was fun. Like, I was a bit of the heel. But the director tried to make it that we were trying to be racist or xenophobic against Kobayashi, but nothing could be further from the truth. And it was like, and she went so far as to say, George will say anything to get a reaction just like Trump.
Oh, wow.
Right? Yeah. Which I was really upset about at the time. But what I think she was trying to say inartfully, because it wasn't true, what she's trying to say is that if you understand narrative and you will use that you will be surprised at how much people are hardwired for narrative and they can't stop themselves from the reaction that they're going to get. And this is true of every movie and every book and in advertising, every ad. Like, we know the arc of a movie, get the girl, lose the girl, get the girl, or you know what I'm saying? All these kind of arcs, you can just go online and get them all. But we fall for them every time. And that is true if you know how to use narrative. Now, I would never do anything that's divisive and have no interest in that. But I do use narrative, and people feel that.
George, do you have a mantra or a quote that you live by, that you think about?
I would say I do. I never thought of it quite that way, and I've used this for introductions in various forms. But for me, always onward, always forward, carry the weight, advance the cause, never submit, unto the breach, ever onward, only onward. Like, and I've used variations of that. Just never quit. Just like that, because it's PR and all of this, very difficult. Everybody's job is very difficult. And you're just onward. And that's the Joey Chestnut mantra. He just won't stop. And that's always what I've, pushed on that. But that is how I approach it.
All right. We do an inspiration of the week on the podcast. I'll start with mine. Let me know if you have one. But something that's inspired me this week is the release of Evan Gershovich. I think I'm pronouncing that right. He was a reporter for the Wall Street Journal. He was detained in Russia in March of 23. And they never stopped raising awareness. They kept the pressure on the U.S. to negotiate. They paid for legal resources. They launched I Stand With Evan campaign. They just kept it in the news. They did not let it go away. And, they were released yesterday, I think. And so my inspiration is the Wall Street Journal. Someone having reporter employees back that much to ultimately get him released was just inspiring. And relevant to what we're talking about on the show today. Do you have something that's inspired you?
I was at an event, this Wednesday's event, last Friday, and in Long Island, and there was this young kid named Keelan, and he's from Australia. He came all the way to the US to compete in this event and a couple other events. And he was so excited about it. Mine is much less powerful, thoughtful, and emotional than yours. So from the sublime, maybe in this case, to the ridiculous. But there's this young man. He was so excited. He ate 131 Wendy's chicken nuggets, and it had made him fifth. And he wanted to be on the rankings. And I was just actually compelled by the humanity of it, the honesty of it, and I just felt really positive.
It made you feel good about what you're doing.
And it was sweet. It was just, I'm a father, right? So it was just very sweet.
All right. Last question, double dog dare. Mine is inspired by the pommel horse guy who qualified for the men's gymnastics team. You know this guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Solely on the strength of his pommel horse routine, who scored a 14.8. And that's all he did. He showed up and did one job, and then they got on the medal stand. My double dog dare is to remind the audience for you to think about that thing that you're really good at. And just because you're really good at it, don't forget to focus on it and spend your energy on that special gift you have, you know, whatever your pommel horse is. Still focus on that, because that thing is important and can, you know, get you on the medal stand. What is your double dog dare for our audience?
I'm not sure this is quite perfect, but the you know, what I have found is that, and this is nothing new. No one, I'm not the first to say it by any stretch. Our attention and our resources, personal and time, are being stolen by social media and other distractions. And I think there's a real price that we are all paying in our level of, our attention span, but also just never doing something, but always distracting ourselves. So I'm a real victim of this. I'm in the elevator. Okay, well, I got to distract myself on my phone, right? And I really honestly believe if you put the phone down, and lately I've been trying to read a book. I was a huge reader, always have been, but I haven't read a lot lately because of the phone. And changing gears and reading books has been really rewarding, but it's very hard. You're reading and your phone's on your bed and you go, well, I better check. Check what? But I think the level of damage that this has to our brain and to our creativity and to exploring new things is really powerful and negative. And I think, if you go a little analog, you may find that you get much more. When you look at Instagram or one of these, TikTok or whatever, it feels like you're getting all this stuff. Someone's telling you the 10 best ways to cook. Someone telling you the 10 best ways to make money. Someone's making you laugh. But when you get done, you didn't get anything. You lost. You got taken. You got taken for your time and you got nothing. And I think if you go analog a little, you might find that you actually get a lot more.
I love that. Go analog is the dare. And I'm glad to see you're doing that. It is hard, but you don't miss anything. You put your phone away for 3 hours, you feel better. All right. Thanks for being on the show. You were fantastic. Great showman. We learned a lot about earned media, learned a lot about your philosophy and approach. And we wish you nothing but continued success in the future.
Thank you so much for having me.
Soul and Science is a Mekanism podcast produced by Maggie Bowles, Ryan Tillotson, and Lily Jablonski. The show is edited by Daniel Ferreira with theme music by Kyle Merritt. And I'm your host, Jason Harris.